Greetings, welcome to day 54 of Project Dig. Thank you for joining. Project Dig is a 2D multiplayer automation survival sandbox game that I am developing entirely here on Twitch and uploading all the VODs to YouTube. We're creating a custom C++ game engine using SDL, BGFX, Fmod Spine, Lua JIT with Sol 3, and many more libraries to kind of help us get to that finish line of releasing the game. We're still pretty early in development. Like I said, today is day 54. We have been working on scripting support. Come on, load. There we go. Scripting support using Lua. We have some really basic stuff working now. We got it so that our our classes and structures in C++ are being exposed to Lua. You know, we have that binding set up. Lua user types, as they're called, and I think are at a good place to start looking at the prefab templates or just prefabs content stuff that they're also sometimes called archetypes. Basically any type of content in the game that represents an entity. Oh yeah, a coffee. So I think today we're going to be looking at the design of the prefab templates. How do we want to do that? How is that going to work and make sense? Sketch some things out and then go from there. Go ahead and actually I might want to keep that open. Yeah. I should font. Let me do a little bit of cleanup here for fonts. Rendering prototype to rendering. Where are my fonts? Where are the fonts? I don't know, I guess I'll just throw it in here. Font outlining. So I can close that. I end up with all of these various aligning processing. Okay, actually let's add on to that. Hey you. There we go. Cool. Yeah, I end up with all of these tabs open. I think this is that first one, right? Yes. So let's just I think I'm going to add in this as this. Actually, why don't we just make that a link? Sure. Multiplayer stuff. Oh, that doesn't even work as a link? Oh, it does. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, clean that stuff up. There we go. I haven't seen Notion.so before. Yeah, it seems nice. It's kind of like it's almost like a CMS in some ways. But it's set up to be able to make notes and like boards very easily and a few other things, calendars and whatnot. So it has all these widgets basically that you can quickly add to pages, and yeah, it's pretty nice. And it has a dark mode, which is nice. Which is very nice. Okay, so yeah, prefab templates. So we're going to be diving into those today. What exactly should they look like? How should they work? So let's kind of first step back. Why do we want prefab templates, or just like what's the whole point of what are we trying to do here? We want to make content for the game. We need to be able to add in items and you know, monsters, or I mean this game probably won't have monsters. Yeah, items and plants and so on. Trying to take over the world. Yes. Exactly what we need to be doing with the prefabs. Let's see. Animals, items, NPCs. Like, this game is going to not have that much content. It's going to be very focused on just the environment. So I should say it's not going to have a ton of variety and the types of content. Like, there's a good chance we won't have monsters. We might have animals. There's definitely items, lots of items that you can have in your inventory, and items you can place in the world. Plants, tiles, or different types of blocks. So we have these different types of content or prefabs that we need to be putting into the game, into the game. We're having them loaded up into our prefab stash. So that's kind of the end goal, is that we need to have a prefab stash that gets populated with all of our prefabs. And a prefab is a list of, it's a name, it's an ID, and it's a list of the prefab components or components that make up that prefab. Hey, Cooler, what's up? Welcome. So we're trying to populate the prefab stash with all of our prefabs, loading them from a Lua script. So this is Korea code, Korea stuff. And so I'm just looking at what I did for its templates. So we have all the prefabs. We need to load them into the game. What's the best way to do that? What I came up with for Korea is this whole templating solution where we can have pretty much it's a function that's more or less what it is a function that takes some number of arguments. It could basically be a table. Is there a Siege logo on the mug? No, sadly. It's actually Stumptown Coffee, which is a place up in Portland. So it's a function that takes like a table of arguments, and then it figures out how it should apply those to the components that make up that thing. So like a tile, if we go look at our template item, oh, look, it's right there, tile, we can see that, so I just have it, everything goes into the corgs. So the majority of it gets passed into, or I should say all of it gets passed to template, which will have like 1 or 2 things. Needs Seeds logo mug, yeah. Maybe I will. Maybe. So then we can kind of set up the defaults. So it's like, hey, if this doesn't exist, that's what set default does, is like, if opacity doesn't exist, like it wasn't set, then use our default opacity, and same with wall opacity. And then we have this massive list of attributes that get set on the tile component. So we add a tile component to this prefab, and then we pretty much go through all of these attributes and say, hey, if this attribute is within or is inside of the keyword arguments corgs, then assign it. And after that, then we set up a few other things. I don't know why we do these here and not in here, but tile dropped. That sets up some more stuff. Update render. So tiles don't have a ton of content, it looks like. I thought, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, and this will also add like a render component, and I think that's it. So they don't have a ton of, I should say, a ton of components. And then we can add in the item component by saying it is an item. And craftable. So yeah, so this will add in, yeah, the item component, set this stuff up. Craftable adds the craft component, sets all of these up. And then sometimes you can have a template that is much more specific, such as the sword. So swords, they're pretty much all the same, or they're very, very, very similar. So they're all items. They are all equipable. They are all equipable on the like hand weapon slots. You know, you can't equip a sword to your feet or something like that, or your legs. So they always go in the same place. They always have like a render component and a weapon component and an item component, and so on. So it's like we can, by just saying, hey, this is a sword, we can add all of those components to it, and then we can override, you know, some very specific things like, hey, this is the name, this is the power, this is the level to equip it, this is the service. So if we like specify service required and materials, then it says, oh, hey, this is also craftable. Like you can figure that out. And hey, whenever we say it's craftable, that means that it's always in the like weapons, swords category and subcategory, and we can just, you know, pull out the material or the materials from this, and we can use the same level to determine the crafting level. And so we can like set up this entire craft component with pretty much just, you know, a few points of data, because everything else defaults to stuff. Yeah. So this sword represents probably like 30, like what we have here, which is 12 lines. That represents, yeah, probably 30 or more like 40 or something lines of code that we would have to add in sword. Yeah, look at all this. Swing frames. This is actually not used anymore, so we could get rid of that. But yeah, it has all the different weapons attacks. And we say it's a weapon. So not only is it that we're able to keep the amount of code that we have to provide down whenever we're creating this prefab, it also makes it so we don't have to copy paste a ton of stuff, which means that in the future, if we ever have to go back and say, you know what, actually let's make it so that all of the swords, damage. So this first arg is like how much more damage it's the damage multiplier for that weapon attack. So like combos deal more damage. We could say, you know what, let's actually make it so that the third attack is more powerful. And it will change that for all of the weapons in the game. All of the swords, I should say. All the swords in the game. Or if we wanted to, do something else, like maybe we wanted to move the crafting category it goes into, or whatever. There's a lot of like things that we could do in here that could change. That we would potentially want to do, and it would change it for all of the swords. And we wouldn't have to go through every single individual sword content file, changing them. Hey, Josh, working on Korea again? Not right now. We're actually looking at Korea code for creating prefab templates for projectDIG. So yeah, we're just kind of looking at like how can we use that? What's good? What's not? But I think we will be working on Korea today some. I really, 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 really need to start working on it. Because I have an update that I need to get done by August. A new duck and Leo Flame, welcome. Love how every project exists to fix the problems in the predecessor. Yeah. I mean, we all want to learn from our mistakes, right? Oh, why? Why do I have a Korea update? I managed to. I talked to Molly. You know Molly. Molly Carroll, and she was able to get me a Steam daily deal in August, which was awesome of her. And so yeah, and I promised an update to coincide with that. I have an update like with about 3 weeks or so of work into it, so I just need to finish it. Thanks, yeah. It's something I learned, like, projects are always, or like, anytime you're working on something, there's much to learn. And I never really thought about marketing very much, but I've learned a ton about marketing. Mostly what not to do while working on Korea. One mistake I made, for a long time I was thinking I don't want to put the game on sale because I don't want to devalue it. But something I didn't really think about is that the game just naturally devalues to people over time. That, on release day, people are willing to pay full price or very close to it. And then a few months later, depending on the popularity of the game, it's going to devalue. And this people that were willing to pay or very close to full price are a little less likely to pay full price because, maybe the friends aren't playing it anymore, and so they're wanting to wait for it to go on sale, maybe even more, like 25 or 30%, and so on. And like, if you don't discount the game to kind of match that decline in interest, or at least you probably really want to be exceeding it just a little bit, then that means that the people that would be willing to pay very close to full price at release date are now willing to pay even less, 6 months or a year later. So like, I have the game at 50% off now. 2 years ago, a ton of people would have been very happy to pay 50% off, and now they're like, yeah, I don't really remember that game. It's been on my wish list for 3 years, but and so you have to discount it even more. And so like, that's something I didn't really think about. And that probably did not help the game much. So like, yeah, interest. Keeping people interested in the game. While you're not directly competing with any particular game, you're always competing with all of the games. What was that from? Oh yes. The Nick Popola. What's his name? Nick. From Monami Park. Momomi Park. Slime Rancher dev. He did a talk. I think his last name is Popolova or Popolov. I can't remember, but he did a talk about doing gifts for your game and getting people interested, and he did talk about that some. Popovic, yeah, that sounds right. Nick Popovic. Popovich. There it is. With this H, not a K. We're close. Yeah. Yeah, he did a talk about that recently. Just like keeping people interested in your game, and that you're really competing with everyone, not just even games, but like TV and social media. Everyone is competing for people's attention. Let me find that talk. There we go. There it is. The title of the talk is Making Games That Stand Out and Survive. But yeah, it was good. It's good. But anyways, enough of that tangent. Something, like I was saying, I hope to learn from. Of course, some games can kind of defy that. Like I was saying, it's just really about trying to stay just above that curve of declining interest whenever you're doing like discounts or any type of promotion. So if you have a game like Terraria or Stardew Valley or whatever, you can absolutely afford to discount at a slower rate, because the rate that the interest is declining is much lower as well. And that's something I didn't really factor in. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'll discount Korea nicely, over time. But really, like, the interest in Korea has declined much faster than I was thinking it would and hoped, and I didn't really react to that properly. But anyways, so yes, templates, prefab templates. I like what I did for Korea. I think it is really good and awesome. I want to do something similar. How do we do that with Lua? And just something, kind of a note, something to keep in the back of our mind, is not only do we want to be thinking about how to set this up nicely, but also how can we make it so that we can easily reload a prefab if it changes. So hot reloading, because that's like one of the major feature that we are wanting to get out of all of this is hot reloading. I think it's kind of separate to some degree, but it is also at the same time kind of in the same space. Yeah. So let's see here. How can we do all of this? So I'm not like super savvy with Lua. I'm still learning a lot with it. Let me. I have Dropbox paused, but yet it was still syncing stuff. You jerk. Can I just kill it? Can I kill it? Exit Dropbox. There we go. It's dead. Just like that. Okay. So, yeah, let's come up with how we can do this. Sounds like Dropbox. Yeah. Good thing you're not on a metered connection. Funny thing, actually last month, I exceeded the... So I'm on Comcast or Xfinity. I exceeded the monthly bandwidth allotted to me, which is 1 terabyte. It's because I'm streaming every single day, and then I was uploading the VODs every single day. And also my brother just moved in, and so he watches videos like every single day. Like he basically watches movies constantly. Been there, done that. Yeah, I've never done that before. I'm not sure how. Videos, yes, videos. Yeah, he watches like TV shows and movies. It's crazy. He's watched so much. Like any show I mention, he's like, "Oh yeah, I've seen that." It's like, what haven't you seen? Speaking of watching stuff, last night I watched some One Punch Man season 2. It's pretty good. I was a little thrown off by the change in voice actor. Like, I heard that changed studios, but I didn't really think about the voice actor being different. The art style is just a little bit different, but still good. it's still good. Yeah, One Punch Man. I love the show because they will like constantly surprise you with how like they kind of go against all the like tropes and making fun of everything, and yeah, it's great. And just how like casual the main guy is with his like extreme superpowers, his extreme strength. Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Okay, so thinking about this. So one thing we could do is create the components. Well, we could do many things here. Thinking. So um we could implement a lot of it in the C++ side of things. I was just debating if that is what we actually want to do. So let's look at how we currently have the prefab stuff set up. So we have the components and we push back a component and then we can do whatever we want. Well, I guess typically we set up the component and then we add it at the end. So we could make these templates in C++, like the sword or whatever, spear. Maybe what we should do is create a sample of what we want the actual code to look like. I like what I did for Korea for the most part. Like, I think this looks great. I don't think we can do something exactly like this, but maybe we can come up with something very similar. So like, what can we do? So one thing I'd like to do is make it so we don't have to ever have any includes. So this would be a Lua file. So like, what can we do to set this up? What's that? Trying to think what we can do to make something like this. So unfortunately, right now, it's not possible. So Lua doesn't have named arguments. Do you need logic in it? If not, JSON? We're going to support callbacks. So yeah, we will have logic. So let's say that, like, one thing we might want to do, we could even look at this. Would be a good example. Maybe switch.ce. Oh, whoops. Switch.ce. So we could look at this as well as like a separate thing. So let's, maybe I will put it in a separate file. So yeah, switch, we want to have it like, give it some interact. Yeah, the interact callback. Or maybe it would just be, I don't know exactly how I want to do that with the events. I don't think I have an event component yet, but if that's what I want to do. But yeah, we would have a callback that would allow us to do something along these lines where we could say, hey, if the entity is in this state, then do this thing, otherwise do this other thing. One thing I definitely want to change is how the sprites and animation data is set up. I really am not happy with how that was made. I think I will always have it be in separate files. It just made the files very ugly, and I think I'd rather put it in a separate file or something. If we bring the 3D engine, would you do dig as 3D? 3D. That's an interesting. I haven't really thought about the game design. I imagine it should work in the 3D space. A good question is, would I even want to make a 3D game? I don't know. I don't know why. I am just kind of a 2D guy. Although I will say that the whole like 3D with 2D sprites is very attractive to me. I love that style. We're talking about yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? Like Grandia, and there's another game, I forget the name already. Old PlayStation 1 games did this fairly often with the like 2D sprites and low poly 3D worlds. Love it. I would definitely make a 3D game like this at some point. I don't know if Dig would be good like that. You're making something similar to Dig? Okay, so yeah, we do want to support some logic. But yeah, and actually, whenever I came up with design, I wanted to do something similar to JSON, and you can see that to some degree. Voxel fighter builder thingy. Ah, okay. Nice. Fighter builder thingy. Voxels. Yeah, I think so the challenge with, I mean, it probably would work. I haven't really thought about it. It probably would work, but like one of the major like pillars of projectDIG design is, like, I would say actually like the core is automation with items that have and use physics. So you can like throw items around and, you know, manipulate them in different ways, whereas like typically, and I think pretty much every automation game that I can think of is just conveyor belts. Like you move items with conveyor belts, period. And so I'm trying to do something different with that, where it's like, you know, you move items not with conveyor belts solely, but with physics. And well, conveyor belts is one thing that you can use. But you can also use like launchers and fans and just gravity, like allowing it to fall down a hole and whatnot. To like, that's the core, like I would say probably one of the core things for projectDIG. And there's a lot of like other features I want to experiment with, but I think that's what I'm going to be pivoting off of, is that physics automation. And I don't know how well that would work in 3D. Like I would need to play around with it. It probably would work. And there's also the chance that it could be better. But it might be harder to kind of see. I don't know. I'm not sure. It'd be something to prototype, but I don't know. I feel like I'm already pretty far into this game's development. I don't know if I would want to change the like core design. Conveyor belts. Nani. Fans, trampolines. Yeah, definitely thought of fans. Hadn't really thought about trampolines much, but I could see that. Yeah, items will bounce, have a little bit of restitution, so they'll bounce off of walls a tiny bit. And I'm also thinking I'll be playing around with different item weights, so I would like to support items being filtered in a few different ways. One is like conveyor belts that you can have them filter items, so like some items will just fall through. So you could say, hey, this conveyor belt only will capture, you know, wood, and everything else, like if you're getting dirt or seeds or whatever, it can fall through. Maybe it falls down into like a furnace that destroys those items permanently, or maybe it does something else. I don't know. But then also like having weight, where you can have an item launcher and wood would shoot a lot further than like iron ores, whatever. But yeah, that's kind of the core concept for the game. So how can we? I actually don't really know Lua very well. Lua containers or whatever. I don't know. Is it? Am I just going to have to use? tables. I think tables is pretty much the only thing you can do, right? So yeah, I think I'll have to create tables as arrays. So I believe I can just do something. So like instead of this, what I could do is have it take a table, and then we would have to try to remember how that's set up. Can I just do it like that? Maybe I wouldn't even need to. Maybe that would work. Looks like it. X, Y, no matter. Yeah, I think that might just work. And so what we could do is pass in all of the args as a table, maybe. Hey, Summer Boss, how's it going? Just kind of thinking about that. So you can use it as an array as well. Where was that at? Table. Oh, I think. There we go. Yeah, just like this. I see. I see. So yeah, then we could have this be basically a table. As well. I think that could work. I don't know. So would I want it to be like this? One thing we could do is possibly not have it return. So what we want to do is try to keep these the script as tight as possible. Anything we can take out, we should absolutely do that. So one thing I'm kind of thinking about is like maybe we could make this be a class. That's a possibility. But what if we could do something else? Like one thing we could do if we wanted to is say like all of them start with like prefab ... and we pass in the prefab. That's like the first thing we do. So whenever we call the script, we pass in the prefab, and then maybe we have just like functions that we can call. Like that, where we pass in the prefab as the item. Or sorry, as the first argument. I don't know if I like that. And so another possibility is that we could do something like this, where we say prefab item. Well, I guess it might be something like is item. And so then this would make it so that the prefab would have, it's pretty much the template. And so we would be doing stuff on that. The one thing I don't like about this is then it's not super extendable. Maybe that's okay. One thing that we could maybe do, because we're setting it up, right? So we are adding in, where is that at? Right here, the Lua user types. So we could add in a type that has static variables that basically is like, you know, we could do this. And this is a static, like maybe prefab is, I don't know, maybe we could just get rid of that. And these could be, I don't know if I like that. It's a possibility. Yeah, like what could we, maybe, could we trim it down even more? So basically we could expose these as like functions that we could be calling, or maybe it could be like this where we have it in this like namespace, or I guess this is static, so we don't have to pass in anything, and it's modifying the current prefab that we're creating. So then, yeah, we could just say prefab is item and pass in whatever we want. And then inside of the is item, it would pull out all of the arguments, or like it would pull out the stuff in the table and say, okay, well, if it has name, then use this, whatever. One thing that is kind of weird about this is that we don't have it like doing any type of setup. Like, you know, is item shouldn't really be taking the name. If we had it so that it was like we are making an item prefab, then that would make more sense. What else could we do with that? We could have like maybe at the beginning we could have like a prefab init, and that could take the name switch I don't even know if we really need other stuff. If we look at template, whoops. Template. Name, image, render type. That's because it assumes that they're all going to have render components. And so what it would do is it would automatically set the image to be the name of the content. So it would be, if we had lumber.ce, it would be lumber.png. If we did not provide the image path. So that worked out pretty well. I don't know if we always want to do that though. Maybe what it could do, one nicer thing, is that it would not add a render component if we don't have an image corresponding to it. Although it was kind of nice when we didn't have a render component. And, alright, sorry, some image file, and then it would complain. Because we pretty much always had a render entity, or render component for the entities. But yeah, it's pretty nice to have it be able to automatically like find and set that stuff up so you don't have to define much. I think that's really good. Maybe what we could do is separate this out, kind of like most things, where they will typically just set up the render component for us. One thing that's true is that it might be a spine component, and then the render stuff would be very different. Yeah. So I kind of like this init. Get rid of that. Item. Stack. Use time. Craftable. Basics. I don't know, what do you guys think of something like this? Placeable. So again, this would go like that. Can we say that this is tools project? No, wait. Oops. There's a way to do this. I'm forgetting how. To be able to change it here. Set syntax Lua. There we go. Mechanical. I don't know. I think this is pretty good, honestly. I like that I should be able to get away with not having any like includes or requires, so that way the script can just be as simple as possible. So like this over here, what would this look like? This would be prefab, init, Agmore sword. One thing I was thinking about doing is making it so whenever you specify like if you yeah, so this is actually a good question, is how would we do something like this? Because really what I want to be doing is I don't know. I'd like to be able to do stuff like this very nicely. You know, I guess it is a possibility that we could do this. Tab. Yeah, I could see this. This doesn't work, huh? I don't think. I don't think that's a thing, right? Huh. Yeah, I think we would have to replace it with something more like that. Do we like this? Do we like this? So why would we need the init to be outside of this? Do we need that? Like, couldn't we just do this? Name equal, right? And then I like technically this could just call init and pass in the name. I think that this is good. I think, yeah, I like this. Unfortunately, we can't do named arguments, so something like this would not work. We'd have to say 7, 4. It makes me sad that Lua does not have named arguments. Named arguments, named parameters, right? Wait, does it? Invalid code. Oh yeah. Lua has no direct support for. We have this same final effect with this small syntax change. I see. Yeah, that's lame. I guess that's kind of what I'm doing. That's pretty much what I'm doing, is I'm saying, hey, let's go ahead and put everything in a table instead as the args, and then we can do .old or .new, whatever. Yeah. That is exactly what we are wanting to do here. So the question is, do we want to do something like this? I think that this works. Do we want to actually, I guess, yeah, do we want it to be prefab colon? Do we want to have it be something else? I think prefab colon makes sense. You guys have a proposal for anything else? Prefab sword. I think the prefab, this works. Is it going to be upset if we have this prefab and then something else that's a prefab? Let's look at our Lewis Soul stuff here. Functions, how do we expose? I want like a namespace, right? That's not what I want. Containers. Yeah, that's not going to be what we want either. One thing I'm kind of trying to figure out here, mostly, I guess it's like static. Well, it could be static functions for class. Maybe that's what we should look for. Static. Unique user type traits. Static. Hey, Pink Fluffy Llama, what's up? How's it going? Static. Free function, static function to name. Okay. So I think that works. If the first argument is tstart or tn, then it will bind it as a member function. If it is not, it will be bound as a static function on the Lua table. I see. Okay, so that's that makes sense. I understand this now. Hey Arstat, fairly meh. Sorry to hear that. So what we could do if we go to Lua user types, we can have a prefab. I'm just like making an example here. And it can have this prefab could be, what we could do is actually make it a maybe we can add in a new thing which is like a namespace, a user type namespace. Could see that. Maybe. A little tricky. I could see it working. I don't even know if we have to tell it that it's a namespace. I guess we probably should. So that'd be for something, yeah, like maybe our network might have an exposed namespace. So we could say here, this is like Lua user type namespace. And it would be able to figure out, oh, this is a server, and then we could say Lua func, and it would bind these as static to it. And so it would know like, oh yeah, these are all static functions. So we could do in our Lua code, we'd be able to do something along the lines of server dot setup. Or, I mean, we probably wouldn't want to expose the setup. Server, maybe. But we would definitely want to do like a send function. You can use nested Lua tables to emulate namespaces on Lua side. Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to do. It's a user type, which is just a table. Yeah, so we could do something like this. I didn't realize. That's why I need to hold up. Okay. Let's do this. Let's close all but this because. Oh wait, I take that back. Let's close all but this. Okay, there. Now whenever we like, that's one thing I do is I'll like go in and start changing a file, and then when I'm done I just undo everything. But if the file was open already and I had made changes that I saved, then it starts undoing those saved changes. Do not want. So yeah, we could have this, and it would be like a prefab. Oh, whoops. This would be, you know, a init. And so this is a namespace, right? I just want to. So it'd be something like this. And this would end up being quite massive. It would have all of the stuff, all of the things. But then it would allow us to do something like this. And so prefab would basically allow us to, yeah, it would set up the prefab. Probably what we would end up doing is inside of this file, the prefab file. I don't know if we already have, we have a prefab.h. So maybe we create a namespace in here called prefab that does all of this stuff. Do we have a prefab.cpp? Yes. So yeah, I'm thinking in here what we could do is have a namespace prefab, and then we could have another anonymous namespace that has a prefab, and what we do basically is whenever we call init, that will actually create, so we need to somehow get our prefab stash. That's a good question. What I might end up doing is maybe we move the prefab stash into prefab or something. I'm not sure yet. Like, it might be nice to just make that be a static thing. Really? Right? Great get and end. Yeah. Like, what do we actually need that for? Like, all it is a list of prefabs right now. I guess we might want to extend that in the future. That's the one thing I'm a little concerned about with that. But yeah, we could maybe make this more or less be a singleton. Maybe. So that way we can easily get access to it. So that's a problem here, is that we don't have access to the prefab stash. But yeah, that's something that we would want to be able to do, is have this prefab stash. You know, it would be static. Something along those lines. So then in our void init, and maybe we say it always takes a string, which is the name, and all it does is it does this. It says, okay, let's get our stash and create a new prefab. Maybe that's just the pointer. Set that to null pointer. Set this to null pointer. S prefab equals that, and then S prefab. I don't even know if we need that. Do we? I guess so. And then we set the name. And that's it. So then like for sword or something, or maybe we'll do a simpler one like I'm just kind of sketching some things out here. We'd have a void init namespace. Oh yeah, that's right. We have a string. Oh wait, no, we don't. Oh, it's Unicode. That's right. I don't know if I want it to be Unicode or not. Maybe it is just a string. This is like the ID for it. But yeah, we could have a void item that, and so like all of these, I think what they will just take is like a soul table or something like that. Let's see here. Let's look at their containers. Soul. Like if we have a container. What I'm looking for is, let's say like a function or something. Let function of my set. So that's what we're just looking at, right? Yeah. Passing arguments to scripts, tables. Yeah, so it's a soul table. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So I think what we could just do is say soul table. Maybe I'll just say args. I don't know, data or something like that. So that would need to just be forward declared. I guess we could just include the soul forward. And so then here's soul table, like table, main table, meta table, data. This would have all the data, and so it would end up looking something more along the lines of this temp item, class item. Oh yeah, that just says it is an item, that's right. So if we look at template is item, this is kind of what we would want to be doing. So we would, I guess what we would need to do, so we need to set up the args, I mean not the args, the component. So we say the prefab components. Oh, right. I think we just say item component, or we don't have an item component. Item component, item. And then we would add this item component to it, and we would set it up. And so it might be like the stack is equal to the data. And is there a nice way to, I hope so, get or beautiful? That is basically the get the default value. So we could say, hey, get the stack, otherwise it defaults to 99. Item, you know, use time is equal to data get or use time. I think I will go that route of having everything be underscored. Get the stack, otherwise you're fired. Isn't today 55? Is it? I don't think so, but I could be wrong. Let me look at the last few days. No, today's 54. Yeah. Should change the name for this one to 53. Yeah, yesterday was 53. The day before was 52. Wasn't yesterday 54? Nope. Thanks though. Use time. Maybe it's like I don't know, 50 or whatever we want to set it to. So that's how this could work. It's pretty nice and simple. So then we could have this more complex one, such as sword. We're not actually going to have sword, but this is an example. And what it could do is, this is like the cool thing, is we could just say, hey, you know what? First call the item, make it an item. So it adds the item component information. And then, and maybe we also want to, if we want to like keep this condensed, you know, where we have the name built in here, we could then just say, let's initialize this with the data get, and I kind of want to look up what happens if we don't have the name here. Like, does it freak out at that point? And so we could say, hey, it's an item. And then also perhaps we can do a few other things like make it a weapon, or, and then we can even do some more with that. I'm thinking what else I could do for that. With the data, like one thing we could do in here is say data, and we could add in default, I guess, right? Is there a like set if it contains it? Set function, traverse set. Is there a contains or a has, or is there add create get is stack push pop set. I don't valid. Will not error get or create table. So what I'm looking for in here is how do we full table subthread. Let's look at this table. Multiple gets into a... Okay, global table, blah, 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 members. Reverse get. Oh, okay, I see. That's kind of cool. That's actually really cool. The traverse get, so you could kind of go deeper. Nice, I like that. Similar to Git, but it does so raw, ignoring meta methods on the table's meta table. Traverse set. That's also pretty cool that you can do that. What I'm really looking for is where's the like a has or contains. How do you check to see if it has something? It's a table, it should have that, right? Isn't it dangerous to set item stack fallback to 99? It may be possible to break that in game in such a way to get 99 of an item. Well, this is for setting up the prefab. That's saying like, hey, this is how much of this item can be stacked to. And so it's like, yeah, if you can change the file, like you could delete it. You know, if we have this in here, you can change the stack. And so this would actually be use time. You could change the stack. So like in this case, we wouldn't even need that. We could just like get rid of it. And so yeah, if you had access to this file and you could change it, so like you could remove the stack, then yeah, that is definitely a way to be able to kind of like cheat, I guess, or you could say it's 90, 999, or maybe the game typically will have a base set to 20, so you could go in here and yeah, just remove it so it goes to 99, or you could change it to be whatever. But that's making it so how many you can have it be stacked to. I think what I'll end up doing for this game and the engine is making it so that all of these prefabs end up going into a huge prefab blob that contains the entire stash. So like all of the files get condensed down to a single file that I then ship with the game, and you wouldn't see these Lua files. The one thing I'm not sure about that is then how would the callbacks work? I'm not sure. Another possibility, yeah, there's a few things I could do. I mean, I could always write them all out as a data blob, but it's actually text, or I don't know. I'll think about how to do that. I'll look into it. You can convert Lua code to ASCII. That's cool. Trying to figure out how do we check to see if it has it. Is it just with optional? Is that the way to do it? Wait, what is there a set or? No. Ah. Raw set to verse set. Basically what I want is a set default which says if this key does not exist, then set it to this value. Which is kind of the opposite of the get or. But that makes it so that I can kind of like override that to some degree. I don't know. Here's how Love2D hides Lua files from the user. Oh, cool. Nice. Thanks. That's cool. Yeah, I'll dig into that and take a look. I probably want to do something like that. Yeah. You could just ban me from ever playing the game. Oh, other people would find the bugs, don't worry. So it looks like the best way I can tell is with Git. And using an optional. That seems horrible. Oh. Is valid. Aha, valid. Okay. That's what I was missing. Valid. Oh, I was in that, huh? Freaking dirty tables. Whoops. Find. I don't think we have a find. Rawset and rawget are basically two functions that don't invoke Lua new index or index meta methods. Tables. Rawset. Yeah, I think what I really would want to do here is just the data. Is that what I want? Maybe I should look for Lua Sol set default. Index. Yeah, I could add in a little helper thing to do this. Basically, I think it would end up being something along the lines of, like, maybe here we would want to say, oh, the stack is set to 1. Or sorry, we'd say stack, stack. Auto stack. If stack is valid. Wait, is that not right? VM full screen, not valid. Core proxy. I thought that this would work. Maybe it will. Oh, I'm not including. That's why. I need to include Sol in here. Yes. So then we could, by doing that, we could say if it's not valid, then set the stack. Or sorry, get or. Oh wait, what's this get or create? Ooh. What's that? Get or create. Gets the value associated with the keys if it exists. If it does not, it will set it with the value and return the result. Set. I guess I don't really need to do that. I can just call the set here and set it to 1. So what I'd like to do is actually do like a set default. Where I could pass in the data, and I guess I'd have to pass in 3 things, huh? It'd be the data, or the table, the value, or the key, and then the value. And it would do this. So that could just be void set default. I probably would pull this out somewhere else, but yeah. Sold table data. So I probably should be passing this stuff around as a reference, right? Like, I don't want to be copying it every time. I'm guessing I should be passing it around as a reference. This, what should I make this? Scroll to the very bottom. Create with. Generates a proxy that is templated on the table type. Enables lookup, yep. Creates a table, optionally with the specified values. Create with. Okay. I guess we'd probably actually want this to be templated, huh? So we could just have it be an arg. Something like that. So then it would just do this. I don't think we need to have it return anything, but yeah, I think I would like to have something along those lines. Obviously this isn't exactly right, but yeah, so then we could easily set up the defaults for these. I like that. It's too bad that the table doesn't have this. Half tempted to add that in. Unfortunately, I don't know how we could do that nicely. Could I make this be like a sol value or something like that? Sol value var Lua value. I don't know if that's right. What does... So like what does set take? Oh, it's just templated. Takes whatever. Yeah. Okay, so that looks good. Yeah, I think this all looks good. I am happy with this design. I think it will allow it. So it's very, very similar to what I did for Korea. It's going to trim some stuff down. Like it gets rid of all the includes, which is awesome. I'd like to make it so that everything is in that is loaded up, so we don't have to worry about it. Like we don't have to do any requires or whatever. It's just there. And then we can have this prefab namespace that does all of this stuff for us. Yep, looks good, looks good. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to call it there for the day. Kind of a slower day, shorter day. Going to, I think, do some design work on Korea for a while. And I'll maybe stream Korea later tonight or tomorrow. Probably not tonight. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to start streaming Korea development some, but I'll continue to also stream projectDIG every day. To my best ability. We'll see how that all goes. I'm trying to juggle both projects. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. I'll be back tomorrow, at least 8 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be picking this back up. I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Take care and see ya.